Hello everyone and welcome to the Solo Gamers Club. Tonight we're going to be continuing with our solo playthrough of War of the Ring. I'd like to apologize to the viewers for the delay in getting the third episode to YouTube. I had some unexpected dental problems and that was causing me quite a bit of grief, and that's what delayed the continuation of the playthrough, so I apologize to the viewers. Also, before we get started, I was contacted by a couple viewers that were watching the series of War of the Ring, and one of them felt that that the tables were applying a little too much attention to the search for the ring, especially earlier in the game. In his opinion, he felt that it should be later in the game when the Fellowship is getting close to Mordor, and I tend to agree with that, so I think I'm going to eventually be modifying that table a little bit, and we'll probably increase the chances of military matters by a point or two, and then I'm going to probably increase the modifiers to allow for a greater chance of the hunt for the ring in the later portions of the game. So as an example, if the Fellowship is on the Mordor track, I might increase that to a +2 or +3 modifier, and then that would focus more of the Shadow's attention on attacking the ringbearer later in the game. So that's one of the things that was brought up to me, and I agree with that. Another person contacted me, and they felt that the hunt allocation table was a little too slender, that I wasn't applying enough dice to the hunt for the ring. So I might think about adjusting that hunt allocation table and increasing the chances of 2, 3, and 4 dice being added to the pool, as opposed to the way I've got it now, which is basically 50% would be adding either none or 1 die. So I might end up increasing those probabilities. But we're going to play through the rest of the game with the tables that we've got, and then we'll analyze it afterwards. Now, to kind of save time and to get the playthrough moving along a little faster, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take care of steps 1 through 4 off camera, and I'll just show the results of the event cards, the dice rolls that we have, the hunt allocation, and then we'll begin with phase 5, the resolution. All right, during the Fellowship phase, the Free Peoples decided to declare themselves in Lorien, and that's going to allow them to get rid of this Captain of Despair card that was played by the Shadow player. It says you must discard this card from the table immediately if the Fellowship is declared in an unconquered Free People's stronghold. So we're going to do that. And then in addition, that is going to reduce our amount of corruption. So by declaring, that is going to reduce our corruption by 1, but unfortunately we're going to have to lose that Fellowship progress that we had in order to accomplish that. Shadow player has a total of 4 eyes in the hunt box. 2 of them were placed during phase 3 and another 2 during the action roll. And now we're at phase 5 and we're going to do our resolutions. Now the Shadow player currently has a total of 9 faction dice. We need to boost ours up. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to get Gandalf the White and possibly Aragorn into the game. We need some extra faction, or action dice I should say. And I think we're going to begin by playing a faction play or draw die. So we're going to use that faction die to play We Only Need Wings. Move all eagles, then eliminate 1 eagle to move or separate from the Fellowship 1 companion or group of companions as if their level were 4. The movement of those companions is allowed to end in a stronghold under siege. All right. So I think what we'll do is we're going to eliminate this eagle that is in Edoras, and we're going to separate out a group from the Fellowship, and they're going to move to Fangorn. So I'm going to separate out Legolas and Merry, and then they have up to 4. Their level is considered to be 4 for this turn. So we're going to move that group through Parth Celebrant and into Fangorn, and that's going to eventually allow us to possibly bring the Ents into play, and possibly Gandalf the White. And now the Shadow player will roll on Sauron's gaze table. There are no modifiers. The roll is a 13, and that is going to be a focus on the ring. We'll begin by checking our character action events and see what we've got. Free Peoples, the Fellowship is currently in Lorien right now. We have Nazgul Search, play if the Fellowship is on step 1 or higher. Nope, not that one. Play if the Fellowship is revealed for Lure of the Ring. Nope. And Morgul Wound, play if the Fellowship is revealed. So none of those are going to help us. Well, I think the best thing the Shadow player can do is he's going to play a character die, and we're going to play Armed by Saruman. Play on the table if Isengard is at war. When this card is in play, Dunlending figures in a region with the Fellowship are considered Shadow Army units for the purpose of the hunt. Dunlending figures in the same region with the Shadow Army add its combat strength when one of the call to battle effects is used, and can be taken as casualties against the Ent attacks. Free People player may force the Armed by Saruman to be discarded by using a Will of the West action die. Alright, now the Free Peoples are up, and I think we're going to bring Gandalf the White into play. So we're going to use a Will of the West die and play Gandalf the White. If Gandalf the Grey has been eliminated, or has left the Fellowship, and any minion is or has been in play, well, we have one, that would be Saruman. You may use one Will of the West action die to play Gandalf the White. If Gandalf the Grey is on the map, replace him. Otherwise, place Gandalf the White in Fangorn or in an elven stronghold controlled by the Free Peoples, even if it is under siege. Well, we're going to place Gandalf the White in Fangorn Forest. So we'll place Gandalf the White in Fangorn, and he's going to award the Free Peoples an extra action die for next turn, which is great. So we're going to add an action die to our action die pool for next turn. And now we'll make a roll on Sauron's gaze table. Rolls a 5, and that's going to be military matters. We'll roll another die and consult table C and see where his focus lies. Rolls a 4, and that's going to be Dol Guldur and Moria, and their primary objective is Lorien. And I think the first thing we're going to do is we'll check our strategy cards and see if any of those can be played in the Dol Guldur and Moria region. Alright, we've got Strongly Guarded, playing the table. No Free People action may move into a region containing a stronghold controlled by the Shadow player. Well, that one would be playable. Shadows Gather, move one Shadow army up to 3 regions, and the movement must end in a region already occupied by another Shadow army. They must not be under siege. The regions must be free for the purposes of army movement, and no Shadow units may be picked up or dropped along the way. That one would be playable. We'd be able to possibly reinforce our second army that is on the doorstep of Lorien. We also have Hill Trolls, play if Sauron is at war. Replace 2 Sauron regular units anywhere in the game board with 2 Sauron elite units. And I think we might want to do that. That's going to increase our attack force on Lorien, so I think we'll do that. We'll play a army die. And we're going to play those Hill Trolls, and we're going to replace a couple of regulars in the second army with elite units. Second army is in Dimril Dale, and I think we'll play that Hill Trolls card there, and we're going to replace 2 regulars with 2 elites. So we'll change over 2 regulars in the second army and replace them with 2 elites. That's going to be a nice strong force to go after Lorien with. And now it's the Free People's turn. We have a Will of the West die, an Army Muster, and a character die. Our corruption level is at 1, and the Fellowship is currently hidden with 0 progress. So I think what we'll do is we'll play a character die, and we're going to attempt to move the Fellowship. Now the Shadow player has 4 eyes in the box, so that's going to allow them 4 dice for the hunt. So we'll advance our progress marker up 1, and now the hunt for the ring will occur. And here's the hunt roll. And they have no successes, they have no rerolls. So we've managed to avoid being spotted. That's great. And as Strider is the guide, we get to place that character die into the fellowship box rather than in the hunt for the ring box. And now it's the shadow player's turn. He'll make his roll on the gaze table. Rolls a 3, and that's going to be military matters again. And we'll see where his focus lies. Rolls a 2, and that's Angmar or Ruin. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to play a muster die. And we're going to do some recruiting. First thing we're going to do is recruit a Easterling in South Ruin. And to provide a little protection up in Angmar, we'll recruit a Sauron regular in Angmar. Now it's the Free People's player, and I think we're going to use this muster army die to play swords in Eriador. The card reads, recruit 1 North unit, regular or elite, in the Shire, and 1 Dwarven unit, regular or elite, in Ered Luin. Then draw a strategy card. All right. And we'll place a elite in the Shire and a Dwarven elite in Ered Luin. Then we get to draw a strategy card. And we draw the strategy event Celeborn's Galadriel. Recruit 1 Elven unit, regular or elite, in Lorien, and then draw a strategy event card. So that'll be useful when the assault finally comes on Lorien, especially since we have Lady Galadriel, which will allow us to recruit even when we're under siege. And now the shadow player is going to roll on the gaze table. Rolls a 5, that's military matters. We'll see where his focus lies. Rolls a 9, and that's going to be Isengard. Now we have to be mindful now that the Ents might be activated at any time, so I think what we'll do is we're going to play an army die and activate a couple of armies for movement. And I think the first thing we're going to do is move the force in Orthanc. We'll move both of those into Fords of Isen. The next group is we're going to move this force in South Dunland, including the Dunlandings. And we're going to move that entire force into the Gap of Rohan. All right. Now the Free Peoples are up. We're down to our last die, and it's a Will of the West die. The shadow player has 2 action dice remaining. Well, I think we're going to play the Will of the West die as an muster die, and we'll play Celeborn's Galadriel. And the card reads, recruit 1 Elven unit, regular or elite, in Lorien, then draw a strategy event card. So we'll recruit a elite into Lorien. That'll give us a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 army units and 1 leader plus Galadriel herself. And we get to draw a strategy event card. And the strategy event is revealed to be Faramir's Rangers. Well, the Free People's player have played their last action die. Shadow player has 2 action dice left. We'll make a roll on the gaze table. Rolls an 8. That's going to be military matters. And we will make another roll and find out where the attention lies. Rolls a 1, and that is Angmar or Ruin, with an objective of either the Shire or Dale. And I think what we'll do is we're going to play a muster army die, and we're going to move a couple armies. And I think what we'll do is we'll move this entire force in South Ruin into East Ruin. And then I'll move this force in North Ruin into the Vale of Carnan. That'll prepare us a little bit for our eventual possible attack on Dale. Shadow player has a single die left, so we will not be consulting the gaze table, and we'll play that to best effect. And that is a recruit faction die. So let's take a look at our factions and see who we want to recruit. Well, all three are available for recruiting. I think what we're going to do is we're going to spend that die and recruit some Corsairs of Umbar. And that allows us to bring one unit into Umbar. We'll bring a Corsair into Umbar. It's the fourth one. And that's the end of the actions phase. Currently, the Shadow player has one victory point, none for the Free Peoples, and that's going to bring the turn to a close. I'll make all the necessary plays for phases 1 through 4, and I'll give you a recap prior to us starting the resolution of the actions. All right, the Shadow player has 3 eyes in the hunt box, and the Fellowship is currently in Lorien. They are hidden with the progress of 1 with 1 corruption. We'll begin our resolution, I think, by playing Faramir's Rangers. We'll play an army muster die there and play that card. And Faramir's Rangers reads, choose a shadow army in Osgiliath or South Ithilien or North Ithilien. Roll 3 dice and score 1 hit against the army for each result of 5+. Then, if there is a Free People's army in Osgiliath, recruit 1 Gondor unit, regular or elite, and 1 Gondor leader there. Well, that's a good card for us, so we'll do that. Okay, we'll make the roll then, and for every 5 or greater, we're going to eliminate 1 army in South Ithilien. And we have a total of 1 success. So we'll eliminate 1 regular from South Ithilien that's in the first army. That's going to reduce that now down to a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 regulars, 1 elite, and 2 Nazgul. And I think we're going to recruit in Osgiliath a leader and an elite, and we'll place those in Osgiliath. That's really going to strengthen our force there. All right, that was a good card. Now it's the Shadow player's turn. Those are the dice and cards that he has available, and we'll roll on the gaze table. Rolls an 18, and his focus now is on the ring. And I think what we'll do, Fellowship is currently in Lorien, so we can't play any of the character cards that we have because we can't move Nazgul into that area. But I think what we'll do is we're going to play a muster army die. Actually, I'll play an army die. And we're going to move 2 armies and try and get those in positions where we can get some rerolls. So I'll begin by moving this force in Daggerlod into Eastern Emyn Muil. And I think the force that's in Dal Guldur will move to the Western Brownlands. We'll leave 1 garrison there. But we'll move that force there, and then with the spiders. Those spiders can sometimes attack the Fellowship if they're revealed. So that'll be our action for the Shadow. And I think it's time to bring the Ents into play. So we're going to use a muster die, and we're going to bring in the Ents of Fangorn. That reads, if Saruman is in play and a companion or the Fellowship is in Fangorn, you may use 1 muster or recruit faction die to bring the Ents into play. So I think what we'll do is we'll use that recruit die instead. We'll keep that muster die for later. We'll use the recruit die and we'll see what we get for the Ents. And they're going to begin with 2 Ents in Fangorn. And we'll place the 2 Ents into Fangorn Forest along with Gandalf the White, Merry, and Legolas. And now we're back with the Shadow player. We'll make his roll on the gaze table. Rolls a 4, that's going to be military matters, and we'll see where he's focused this time. Roll is a 3, and that's going to be Dal Guldur and Moria. And I think time has come. We're going to use an army die to activate our 2nd army in Dimril Dale, and they are going to attack Lorien. And I think we're going to go into a siege there. So the shadow player has moved his entire second army into Lorien. Forces the elves have gone into a siege. Now, there's 2 eagles there, and there's also the fellowship is also present at that location. So those are the forces we have engaged in Lorien. We have the elves in a siege, and that second army, along with a spider, is getting ready to assault. And now it is the Free People's player. We're going to use a muster die to play the card, the Ents Awaken. And that says recruit 1 Ent figure in the Entwood, or add it to the starting setup. Then play 1 faction event card, or reshuffle all Ent faction cards, including this one, from the discard pile into the deck. So we'll place another Ent into the Entwood. And then I think rather than recycling and reshuffling those Ent cards, I think what we'll do is play another faction card. And we're going to play the card Sauron is a Neighbor. That card says play on the table if Sauron is in play. Place 3 Ent figures on this card. When the shadow player uses Sauron's voice ability, recruit 1 of these figures in Fangorn, or add it to the starting setup. You must use any faction die result to recruit 1 of these figures normally. It also says you must immediately discard this card from the table as soon as there are no more figures on it. Okay, and these are the active cards we have right now. We've placed the 3 Ents on the Sauron as a Neighbor card. Now it's the shadow player's turn, and here's his roll. He rolled a 4, that's military matters. We'll find out where his focus is. Result is a 4. And that's going to be Dol Guldur and Moria. And we'll begin by checking out the strategy event cards that we have available to us and see if any of those can be played. We've got Return to Valinor, play if you control at least 1 elven stronghold. We don't control one yet. Strongly Guarded, play on the table. No free people action may move into a region containing a stronghold contained by the shadow. Or Shadows Gather. And the Shadows Gather card allows us to move a shadow army up to 3 regions, and it must end in a region already occupied by another shadow army. That must not be under siege. So that would allow us to get a larger force to reinforce our position with our sieging force in Lorien. Well, I think we are going to use a army die. And we're going to launch an attack on the siege forces at Lorien. All right, the shadow player is going to have a combat strength of 5 with 2 rerolls. And the free peoples will have a combat strength of 5 with a total of 3 rerolls. They have Galadriel and 1 elven leader. Now the presence of the eagles and the spiders will allow those cards to be added to our selection for combat cards. And I think the shadow player is going to play the card Brave Stand. Play if a companion is in the battle. Shadow player rolls 1 less die in his combat roll for each companion present to a minimum of 1. And we can play that card because Galadriel is present and she's considered a companion. Characters are companions. Now the shadow player is going to have a total of 6 combat cards plus the 2 from the spider. So we're going to mix all those together, and there's no need for a roll for this because they cannot roll a number greater than 6 with a single die. So we'll see which card they will try to play. The first card is Foul Stench. Play if the total Nazgul leadership is 1 or more. Well, that's true. If the Nazgul leadership equals or exceeds the total Free People's leadership, the Free People's leader reroll is canceled. Well, that one wouldn't work, so try another one. Deadly Strife. Both armies add 2 to all dice on their combat roll and leader reroll. That one they'll play. Both cards have an initiative of 3, so if that's tied, the defender's card plays first. So the Brave Stand will kick in. The Shadow player rolls 1 less die on his combat roll for each companion present. So they'll be rolling 1 less. They're down to 4 now. And then the Deadly Strife, both armies will add 2 to all their dice rolls for combat and leader rerolls. Okay, so +2. So here is the Shadow player's attack. +2. And they only hit on 6s, so they have a total of 2 hits. All right. Now it is the Free People's combat roll. +2. And they have rolled a total of 3 hits. All right, now we're going to make our rerolls. We'll start with the Fellowship's leader reroll. They can roll up to 3, but they've got 2 successes already, so we'll just be rolling 2. And that produces 1 additional hit. That's 4 hits. Shadow player can reroll 2. And they've scored 2 hits as well on both of those. That's +2. So each side has scored a total of 4 hits. So I think what we'll do is the Shadow player is going to remove 1 elite. And, oh boy, I guess 2 elites. 2 elites will be removed. Those will go back to the force pool. That's 4 losses. Free People's player is going to eliminate a total of 2 elites as well. So the casualties have been taken, and now the Shadow player has the option to reduce the elite that he has to a regular and continue the attack. I think we'll wait for some reinforcements. So we'll end the battle there. And that was an absolutely vicious battle. We had a total of 8 casualties in that single battle. And I think these Free Peoples are going to use an event die for their action. They're going to play Phial of Galadriel, which is going to add that -2 token to the pile once they reach Mordor. So we'll place this tile near the Mordor track, and we'll add that into the mix once that occurs. And now it is the Shadow player's turn. Here's his gaze roll. Rolls a 17, and he's going to turn his attention to the hunt for the ring. Now something interesting came up. We have this card, Nazgul's Search. Play if the Fellowship is on step 1 or higher of the Fellowship track, okay, which they are. It says move any and all Nazgul, then if at least 1 Nazgul is in the region with the Fellowship is revealed. Well, the Fellowship is currently in Lorien. It's their last known position, and that's under siege. So I don't know if that constitutes... The Nazgul are already in there. The Second Army contains 2 Nazgul, but I don't know if, since that's not a conquered Free People's settlement, if that applies or not. That's kind of an interesting question. I checked the rule book. I couldn't find anything that deals with the sieges or with... Normally, Nazgul can't go into a region that's an unconquered Free People's settlement. They're not allowed to move in there. But this is a part of a besieging army. So I don't know. I guess we won't play that card just for the sake of I don't know the answer to that. So we'll try to do something else. And I think what we'll do is we'll play an army die. And we're going to move 2 armies and try to get them in position for potential rerolls. So we'll move this force into Parth Celebrant, and this force will move into Western Emden Mule. All right. Free People's player is up next. They have a character die and a Will of the West. So I think we'll try to move the Fellowship. And this becomes another interesting factor. Now, the location of the Fellowship is Lorien. We have an army and they're besieging the fortress, and that contains both army units and Nazgul. So I'm wondering, I guess they still get the rerolls for that. So, all right. Well, what we'll do then is we're going to play a character die, moving the fellowship, moving them up to 2. And now we're going to have our hunt roll. There's 3 dice in the hunt box, and they're going to get 2 rerolls, it looks like, because of the army units and Nazgul present. And here's their hunt roll. They have 1 success. And they would also get 2 rerolls, so we'll reroll those in the event that an eye comes up. They did. They have 2. So they have 2 successes. So we're going to be able to draw a hunt tile. And the hunt tile is an eye, and it's revealed. So it's going to be 2 corruption, or 2 damage, I should say, on the fellowship. Strider is currently the guide, so I don't know if we want to take a 1 in 4 chance by drawing a casualty or not. I guess we'll use the ring. So we'll move the ring up to a corruption of 3. And the fellowship now has 2 points that it can move on the board, and it is revealed. Now we've added that character die to the fellowship box because Strider is the guide, and we've placed that eye near the mortar track that can come back into play. So we have 2 movements now that we can make with the fellowship. And I think our best bet is to move them 1, 2 into East Emnet. At least we're clear of those army units. Now the Witch King has the ability, he knows if the fellowship is detected in a region which is not an unoccupied free people stronghold, you may move the chief of the ring wraiths to that region with the ring bearer. So he will move to that location. And that's going to end the turn. Now it's the shadow player's turn. He has 2 army muster and a play or draw faction die. Okay, here is their roll. Now the fellowship is revealed, so there'll be a +1 modifier to this roll. Rolls a 20, and that's going to be the ring. Well, we don't have any character event dice to play any of the character cards, although those would be eligible. I think what we'll do is we're going to use a muster army, and we're going to move some army units to try to get additional rerolls. So we'll use a muster army, and we're going to move, I think, 3 into East Emnet. Now that action is going to bring Rohan to the at war box. We're 1 short of it. We have 1 more army we can move. And I think what we'll do is we'll move that force that is in North Anduin Vale. We'll move that into Dimril Dale. All right. And that's our last action die for the Free Peoples. I think we'll use our Will of the West die as a character die, and we're going to hide the Fellowship. All right, that's going to end their action phase. Now it's the Shadow player's phase, and we'll have a roll on the die. There is no modifier this time. The Fellowship is hidden. Rolls a 9, that's military matters, and we'll see where his focus lies. Rolls an 18, and that's Mordor. And we're definitely going to, I believe, launch an attack on Osgiliath. So we're going to use a muster army die. The first army is going to attack Osgiliath. Free Peoples have a strength of 4 with a leadership of 1. And the Shadow player has a strength of 5 with a leadership of 2. We'll see if the Free Peoples are going to play a card. I think the Free Peoples are going to play the card Shield Wall. Before you remove casualties inflicted by your opponent's combat roll and leader reroll, if your opponent scored 2 or more hits, cancel 1 hit. All right. Now we'll see if the Shadow player is going to play a card. Shadow has a total of 5 playable combat cards, so on a roll of 4 or less, 1 less than his total, he'll be playing a card. Rolls a 4, so he's going to play a random card. And the first one is, they are terrible. Play if the total Nazgul leadership is 1 or more. Well, that's true. Subtract 1 from your total Nazgul leadership and add 1 to all of your dice on your leader rerolls. Well, It's not the best card, but they'll play it. So they're going to lose 1 leadership, but they'll get a +1 on the leadership reroll. All right, here's the Shadow player's attack with 5 dice. And they have only 1 hit. Osgiliath is a fortress or a fortification, so that's on the first round, only 6s count. So they've got 1 hit so far. They're going to get 1 reroll with a +1 eventually. And the Shadow, or the Free People's player, has a combat strength of 4 with 1 reroll. Here's their roll. And they scored a total of 2 hits. All right, well, we're going to give them their reroll. It's a 3rd hit. Now we're going to reroll we have 1 reroll for the Shadow player, and he's going to get a +1 to the leader reroll. And that is a hit. So he has a total of 2 hits. So we have to take 2 casualties for the attacking force. I'm sorry, 3 combat casualties. So he's going to take 3 regulars as the Shadow player losses. And the Gondor forces will take a elite as a casualty. That'll suck up 2 of the damage. And I think they're going to withdraw into Lossarnock. So we'll have that whole force withdraw into Lossarnock. That way they'll be able to kind of reinforce either way. And the Shadow force is going to move entirely into and capture Osgiliath. So once again, very heavy casualties, 5 casualties in total. And now the Shadow player has 1 die left. That's a play or draw faction card. And they're going to play the faction event Servants of Sauron. Draw 3 cards from the faction event deck, add 1 card to your hand, and then reshuffle the remaining 2 cards into the deck, together with the faction event cards in your discard pile, including this one. Well, I'm drawing the 3 cards, and I think we're going to take this Children of Ungoliant card. Play if the Fellowship is not in a region containing the Free People's settlement, and then move all spiders up to 2 regions. Then you may discard 1 spider figure in the region with the Fellowship to inflict 1 point of hunt damage, following the rules of a successful hunt. If the Fellowship is hidden, the Free People's player may choose to reveal it to prevent this damage. So I think that's a good card. And that ends Action 5. We'll move on to Step 6. Once again, the Shadow player has a total of 1 victory point, and the Free Peoples have 0. And I think rather than continuing this playthrough, I'm going to end the video series with this video. And I'm going to make the adjustments, I think, to the tables that I'm pretty certain we need to make. What I'm proposing is I'm probably going to bring a change to Table B. We're going to increase military matters up by 1 point. That'll go from 1 to 12 to 1 to 13. That'll lessen the number of search for the rings in the game. And then I'm going to raise up the modifiers for if the Fellowship is revealed. We're going to increase that from +1 to +3. And if the Fellowship is on the mortar track, we'll increase that to +3 as well. And I think that might be a better way to handle this. We'll have more military actions. There will be some hunts for the ring peppered in during the early rounds of play. But I think this will target the ring in a time when it's more necessary. This will give the Shadow player a stronger military presence in the majority of the game, and then still have the ability to focus on hunting the ring later in the game, in the later stages. So I think that might be a better way to do it. Well, I've got a few new games coming in the post. Tomorrow I'll be getting a FedEx delivery with 2 games. And a 3rd game that I have not brought to the channel yet will be coming soon. And just as a hint, it involves Arthurian legends. So thank you so much for joining me for this series. I apologize that the system didn't really allow me to play this out to fruition, but I think the changes are necessary, and I'm not going to bring this to the channel until I make those changes, and then we'll see if that maybe creates a little bit of a smarter bot for the Shadow player. Thank you so much for joining me at the Solo Gamers Club, and I hope to see you again next time for a new video. Have a nice evening.